You gave a talk in 2020 called Why Don't Robots Get Cancer? So given this definition of bioelectric signaling, bioelectricity, why don't robots get cancer and why do we get cancer?
Right. The better question is not why do we get cancer. The question, I think the real question is why isn't it all cancer all the time? In other words, why is there anything other than cancer? So if you think about what's happening here during embryonic development, you start off as a single cell, which then divides. You have a bunch of cells. When we look at an embryo and we say, look, there's one embryo, what are we counting when we say there's one embryo? What is there one of? There's hundreds of thousands or millions of cells. What's there one of? Well, what there's one of is a commitment and alignment of all the cells within anatomical space. All of the cells are in agreement that they are all going to make the same journey in that space of anatomical possibilities. And so they build a human or a giraffe or a tree or whatever they're going to make. So what you're counting on, what you're counting when you say there's one embryo is a kind of coherence where they all share the same model of what they're building. They all share the same set point for the anatomical homeostasis. Any kind of homeostatic process, like in your thermostat, that's going to autonomously try to reach a particular outcome, it has to store a set point. It has to store some kind of representation of what it is that it's working to make, and then that way, if things get deviated, which embryos are very good at, if you deviate them from that path, they will do a lot of hard work to get back there, right? So that set point is the thing they're working towards. Well, the process that allows individual cells to cooperate together to share that same worldview of what it is that we're building, that story that binds them all together, is a set of communications, which are electrical, but also chemical, also biomechanical, and so on. And that process, that amazing cognitive glue that allows individual cells, because remember, individual cells they have competencies on their own. They have their own little goals. They used to be independent organisms back in evolution. They navigated the world by themselves. So keeping them together, this cognitive glue, is really important. And what's happening in our bodies is that these mechanisms are keeping all the cells working towards these high level goals, but that process can break down. And when that process occasionally breaks down, the individual cells disconnect from the electrical network of the body. And when they disconnect, their ability to store a large goal state shrinks down. So they can no longer remember that they were part of a mind meld that was working on making a heart or upkeeping a liver or something like that. They basically shrink back to the tiny little goals of unicellular organisms. So proliferate as much as you can, and eat as much as you can, and go wherever life is good. And that's metastasis. And so robots don't have this because, at least for now, and it doesn't have to be this way, but at least for now in our technology currently, most robotics, not all, but most robotics is made at a single level where the parts are passive. They're not competent. They don't have agendas. They don't do anything. But hopefully the collective is intelligent. And so there really isn't any danger of the individual parts disconnecting and going off on their own, which is cancer. And so robots, for now anyway, although of course this is changing with the swarm robotics and things like that, multi-scale robotics. But standard robot architectures, there's no danger that the various parts are going to defect and start to pursue their own goals because they're made of parts that don't have that capacity. But life isn't like that. Life has this multi-scale competency architecture that has goal directedness learning and decision making all the way across the scales. And so we are always susceptible to some of our parts going off on their own. That's the risk we pay for being a multi-scale cognitive architecture.
So I'm not made of billions of dumb zombies, which was at times, I guess, the image that was painted. The cells are these senseless entities that are just doing as they're told, not made up of these Lego blocks, but instead are made up of some form of these intelligent entities that have some form of agency. So each cell has I guess you could allocate some form of, well, definitely agency and maybe some intelligence to it, even if this intelligence doesn't reflect on the level of an organism for me in particular. And that ultimately makes the human body resilient, but also is the downfall because that could result in something like cancer.
Yeah. Yes. Your cells, your subcellular molecular networks, meaning even the collections of molecular pathways inside your cells have several different kinds of learning that they can do. And the decision-making, problem-solving, learning, goal-directedness is at every level. So molecular components, cells, tissues, organs, many other kinds of things in your body that are sort of harder to explain, all have this kind of different levels of autonomy and different levels of problem solving. Now, when you say that you don't notice it, there are two things to keep in mind. First of all, we as humans are, because of our evolutionary history, are obsessed with vision in the three-dimensional world. If we had the ability to feel, instead of seeing all of this, or in addition to seeing all of this stuff, if we had the ability to feel directly our internal body chemistry, okay, let's say our blood, let's say you had 10 more sensors for your blood chemistry, the way we have with taste and things like that. I think we would have no trouble realizing that we have a symbiont, or several symbionts. Our liver, our kidneys, and so on are intelligent beings that navigate these additional dimensions, these 10 physiological dimensions, and they navigate that space to keep us alive every day. It's very hard for us to imagine that because we don't have any conscious access to it. And the other thing that I'll point out is that when you say you are not aware of it, well, right now, our left hemispheres are having this delightful conversation because they're good at speaking up for themselves. But that's not really evidence. That's not sufficient to clue us into everything that's going on. And you are not conscious of your various substructures going about their day and having wins and losses and things like that any more than you're aware of my consciousness in my body, right? It's the same thing. Our left hemispheres have access to certain things, and we're good at talking about them and making claims about, well, I'm the owner here, I'm the agent. But there are many others in your body that simply don't have speech, and they don't have the ability to make themselves known in that way. But that's the science of diverse intelligence, is to detect them and be able to communicate with them.